Good morning, everyone. Today we are going to explain the characteristics of the community. All communities have certain characteristics in common, and their maintenance is governed by similar forces. So, the communities are having certain characteristics in common, and their maintenance or the maintenance of the community is governed by the similar forces. Like other living entities or living organisms, a community also grows, develops, passes through a stable mature phase, reproduces, and ultimately dies. So, this is just a sequence of events or the activities which are happening in case of all living organisms, and just like all living organisms, the community also shows the sequential events similar to the living organisms, where the community also shows the growth, development, then passes through the mature phase, stable mature phase, then undergoing the process of reproduction, and finally dies at the end of its age. So, these are the sequential activities which are also found among the various communities similar to the living organisms, and such community life cycles taking hundreds or thousands of years. Usually, in case of the life cycle or the life activities from birth to death, in case of living organisms or the species, particular species of living organism having a definite time, a definite lifetime during which all these activities occurs. But in case of community, the community life cycle takes hundreds or thousands of years. There is no limit. There is no limit or a time bound activities occurring in the case of community life cycles. So, like other living entities, community also grows, develops, passes through a stable mature phase, reproduces, and ultimately dies. Such community life cycle taking hundreds or thousands of years, and this results due to an interaction between the organisms or all the organisms or all the species of the community and their environment. Communities do not have exact limits or a time bound activities, but tend to overlap or shows the overlapping of each other, and but tend to overlap each other or shows overlapping with one another. Animals frequently shift from one community to another. Animals frequently shift or migrate from one community to another community because of seasonal changes and other variations. So, among the animals, there is a frequent migration from one community to other community, and this is due to the seasonal changes or other variations. There are some characteristics of the community. There are some characteristics of the community are as follows, such as richness, species richness, dominance, species diversity, abundance, stratification, ecotone, and age effect. So, today we'll explain all these characteristics of the community one by one. So, first one is species richness. So, first character of the community, that is species richness. So, in a community, we know there are several species or different species. So whatever the number of the species present in a community, whatever the number of species present in the community, so total of which is called as species richness. So when the community is having highest number of species of organisms belonging to different species, so whatever the total number of the species present in a community is called as species richness. So species richness is the total number. Species richness is thus the total number of different species represented in an ecological community or present in a particular community or in a landscape or in a particular ecological community, landscape or a region. So in a particular region or a landscape, so whatever the ecological community representing the total number of species, total number of different species present in the ecological community or a landscape or a region, a particular region, which shows the community. So the species richness is the total number of different species represented or occurs in a ecological community landscape. In a ecological community landscape or region. Species richness is simply a count of species and it does not take into account the abundances of the species or their relative abundance distributions. Species diversity takes into account species diversity take into account both species richness, both species richness and species evenness. So, the species richness is simply a count or the measurement of the total number of different species in the ecological community or in a particular landscape or region representing the ecological community. The observed species richness is affected by the number of individuals the observed species richness or actual species richness is affected by the number of individuals as well as heterogeneity or a diversity of the sample. So the observed species richness is affected by the number of individuals as well as its heterogeneity or the diversity of the sample. If individuals are drawn, if individuals are drawn or removed from different environmental habitats or different environmental conditions, the species richness, the species richness of the resulting set can be expected to be higher than if all the individuals are drawn from the similar environments. So, the observed species richness is affected by the number of individuals as well as heterogeneity or the diversity of the sample. If the individuals are drawn or removed from different environmental habitats or the conditions, the species richness of the resulting set, the species richness of the resulting set can be expected to be higher than if all the individuals are drawn from the similar environments. Yes, if we are removing some individuals from the different environmental habitats or the conditions, the species richness of the resulting set can be expected to be higher than when all the individuals are drawn from the similar environments. Species richness is the number of species. Species richness is the number of species or all the species. Species richness is the number of species within a community, within a community or a area. Species richness is the total number of species or total number of different species within a community or a area. For example, if we have two plots of the land, if we have two plots of land, that is A and B, plot A and plot B. So, species richness, when considered from the plot A and plot B, plot A has 24 species of the plants. Plot A has 24 different species of the plants and plot B has 84 species of plants. So, certainly the plot B has higher species richness. The plot B has higher species richness. So, this is just a total measurement of the different species in a community or in a particular area representing the species richness. So total measurement of the species of a particular community might be a plot A or a plot B. So in the example, we have considered two plots of the land. For example, we have considered two plots of the land A and B. Plot A has 24 species and plot B has 84 species of the plants, indicating the plot B has higher species richness because it is having more number of species of the plants, that is 84. So species richness does not take into account the distribution of the species within the area, what is referred to as species evenness. So species richness does not take into account the distribution of the species in a community or in a particular area, or what is referred to as the species evenness or the distribution. So is just species richness is just a total number or measurement of total number of species or different species present in a community or in a particular area or in a particular habitat, but this is not uh, referred to as a species distribution or the evenness. In the above example, if the majority of the individuals in the above example, if the majority of the individuals in a plot B with 84 different species, all coming from one or two different species, then this plot would have low species evenness. Low species evenness because this, even though the species richness, that is 84 species, different species are present in the plot B or having higher species richness, that is 84 different species. But if the species, 84 different species, all come from one or two different species, all come from one or two different species, this plot would have low species evenness. The species richness index, that is Margalef richness index calculator, is used to find out the Margalef diversity index. So species richness index can be calculated. Species richness index can be calculated by Margalef richness index calculator. To find out the Margalef diversity index, species richness index is denoted by capital S. Species richness index is denoted by capital S, which is the simplest measure or which is the simplest measurement of the biodiversity. It is the count of the number of different species. Yes, capital S, or the species richness index, which is denoted by letter capital S, which is the simplest measurement of the biodiversity, and it is the count of number of different species in a given area or a community. Species richness index calculator Species richness index calculator uses the Margalef formula for the calculation of Margalef richness index in a biodiversity. So Margalef richness index in biodiversity is equal to capital S minus 1 into log of small n. So this is the formula to calculate the Margalef richness index of the biodiversity. Margalef richness index of the biodiversity, and is calculated by the formula, that is S minus 1 into log of small n, where capital S is total number of species. Here capital S represents total number of species and small n represents total number of individuals in the sample. Small n represents the total number of individuals in the sample. So this is the formula called as Margalef richness index, to calculate the biodiversity of the particular region, or to calculate the species richness index of the particular region or the community. So, species richness index calculator using the Margalef formula for the calculation of Margalef richness index in the biodiversity, and this is the formula for the calculation or the measurement of the species richness index of a particular community. So this is about the species richness and species richness index. So species richness is, again, we can simply define as the total number of different species present in a community or present in a particular area or a particular habitat is called as species richness, and this species richness index can be calculated by the Margalef diversity index or Margalef richness index calculator, or a formula, that is Margalef richness index of the biodiversity is equal to S minus 1 into log of small n. Capital S represents total number of species and small n represents total number of individuals in the sample. So this is the formula used for the calculation of species richness index. Species richness index by the Margalef diversity index, or a formula. Then second characteristic of the community, that is a dominance. So there are numerous or several type of organisms. There are numerous types of organisms or the species might be present in a community. So when we study the concept of dominance, we know there are large number of organisms belonging to different species or several species might be present in a community, out of which few species generally forms major controlling force or the influence due to their higher numbers or a size or the activities. So whatever or the total number of organisms belonging to different species when present in a community, So the community comprises or composed of large number of individuals or the organisms belonging to several species, or there may be large number of organisms or the individuals belonging to different species, or more number of species might be present in the community. But out of all these species, so whatever the total number of species present in a community, out of which few species are dominant type. There are few species of the organisms in a community forms the major controlling influence due to their higher number, due to might be due to their higher number or larger size or their higher activities. So in the community, even though there are large number of species of the organisms present in the community, out of which few species are found to be dominant. Few species of the community are found to be dominant because they forms the major controlling influence or major controlling influence due to their higher number, that is majority, due to their higher number or their higher size or larger size, or the higher number of activities, and the phenomenon in which various species of the community are dominated by one species, the phenomenon in which all the species or the various species of the community are dominated by one or more species. So there are few number of species which are found to be dominant due to their higher number or larger size or their highest number of activities, and thus serves as or acts as a major controlling force in the community. It means the organism, few species of organism, they dominate, they dominate all the species or the various species in the community. So majority of the species are dominated. Several species, various species of the community are dominated by only one or two species. Why? Only one or more species in the community called as community dominance. Means it means few species of the organism, few species or the organisms of few species, the organisms of a few species, maybe one or more, found to be a controlling influence or a controlling force in the community due to either their higher number or larger size or their highest number of activities than the other species. It means the few species in the community which dominate other species, and this uh, dominant species, this dominance, the dominance of few species all over all other species is called as a community dominance. And the dominating species the dominating species are recognized as a community dominant. So few species are dominant species. Few species are dominant among the all species or large number of species of the community. Only few species are dominant species, and which shows the controlling influence or a force in the community only due to their higher number or larger size or the highest number of activities in the community, and thus they act as a species dominating species, and these few species or more than one species which are dominating, remaining all the species of the community is called as a community dominance. So only few species of the community, they are dominating species, and this is called as, the phenomenon is called as a community dominance. So when few species in the community dominating all other species of the community called as community dominance, and the dominating species are recognized as the community dominant. For example, the plants are more dominant. Plants are more dominant in a terrestrial communities than animals. Plants are more dominant in the terrestrial communities than the animals. In aquatic communities, animals are relatively more important in this role. So, Clement and Selford, according to the Clements and Selford in 1939, dominance is most commonly expressed. The dominance is most commonly expressed in the reactions of an organism, expressed in the reactions of an organisms on its habitat. Dominants are most prominent species. Dominant species or dominants are most prominent species in the community forms its greatest mass, forms its greatest mass of living material or a biomass, and serves as the major source of food, and shelter for the animals. For example, in the forest community, trees are dominant. In forest community, trees are dominant species. They decrease the light intensity. Increase the relative humidity, intercept the precipitation, increase the moisture and nutrients in the soil, decrease the wind velocity, and furnish the shelter and food for the animals. So these are the several activities. Performed or shown by the plant community in the forest. So the plants or the plant community or the trees thus serves as a driving force or the controlling force in the forest community, and thus the plants or the trees in the forest community represents the community dominance. Forest trees or the plant community in the forest serves as a dominant species or a community dominance because they shows the highest biomass or highest number in the forest. The number of plants or the trees is more or highest. The number of trees or the plants in the forest is highest. Then means it shows its majority, that is a dominancy, or it is a dominant due to their higher number or higher biomass. Then it also shows the higher activities. Then it also shows higher number of activities, such as in forest community, trees are dominant or the plants are dominant. They decrease light intensity, means they absorb large quantity of the sunlight and thus decreasing the light intensity to pass or to penetrate below to reach up to the land surface. So they decrease the light intensity, then increase the relative humidity. They increase the relative humidity Intercept the precipitation means affecting the rate of rainfall, affecting or increasing the rate of rainfall. Then increase the moisture contents, increasing the moisture contents and the nutrients in the uh, increase the light intensity. They decrease the light intensity, then increasing relative humidity, intercepting the precipitation, increase the moisture and nutrients in the soil, then decrease wind velocity, decreasing wind velocity, and furnish or provides the shelter and food for the animals. So ultimately, in the forest community, the plants or trees represents a dominant species or a dominance. So trees are dominant. Trees are dominant in the forest community. This is because of their larger or higher biomass or higher number, and even they shows higher number of activities in the forest community and thus proves to be dominant. Trees are dominant in a forest community and representing the community dominance. To evaluate the concentration of dominance, to evaluate the concentration of dominance in a species within a community. Simpson in 1949 has devised a formula for calculating index of dominance which shows importance of each species in relation to the community as a whole. So, Simpson in 1949, who proposed a formula for the calculation of index of dominance and which shows the importance of each species in relation to the community. That is, capital C is equal to summation small n I divided by capital N. So this is a simple formula to calculate the index of dominance, that is capital C is equal to summation of small n I divided by capital N, where small n I is the important value of each species or a number of individuals or a total number of individuals of each species or a biomass of each species, total biomass of each species. So small ni represents the importance value of each species or total number of individuals of each species or a total biomass of each species. And capital N represents total importance value, of all species in the community. So capital N represents total importance value of all the species or total number of plants or total number of individuals of all the species or the total biomass of all the species. So capital N represents total importance value of all the species or total number of all plants or total amount of biomass of all the species, and capital C represents the index dominance. Capital C represents in index dominance. So with the help of this formula, that is capital C is equal to summation of small n I divided by capital N, we can calculate the index dominance. So the dominance is a concept. What is the, we'll repeat the same things. What is the concept of dominance? What is the concept of dominance in a community? So, out of total number of species, out of total number of species or the total number of different species, present in a community, few species, one or two or more, maybe few, that is a few number out of total number of different species of the community, few species of the community are found to be dominant species as they serve as a controlling force or a controlling influence in the total community, either due to their higher number or due to their larger size or due to their larger biomass or due to their higher number of activities in the community called as dominant. So whatever the few species which serves as a controlling force or influence in the community called as community dominance. So whatever the species which are dominating, whatever the few number of species, maybe one or two number of species dominating other all remaining species called as dominants, called as community dominants. So whatever the few species of the organism which are dominating other all remaining species of the community called as a community dominants, because these community dominants, they shows highest number of activities or larger highest amount of biomass or the highest number of individuals in these species. So due to, might be due to their highest number, might be due to their highest biomass, or might be due to their highest number of activities in the community. Because usually the dominant community forms a major source of food. Many times the dominant community or dominant species or the dominant species, many times the dominant species of the community forms the major source of food or major source of shelter or their major influence in the community due to their highest number of activities or the interactions with the community and their environment, and thus this phenomenon in which various species of the community are dominated by few species or one species or more than one species is called as community dominance. Community dominance. For example, we have explained the in forest community, the plants or trees found to be a dominant. In a forest community, the plants or the trees found to be a dominant because in the forest trees are dominant because they decrease light intensity, increase the relative humidity, increasing the rate of precipitation or influencing or intercepting the precipitation, increasing the moisture and the nutrients in the soil, increasing forest or the trees of the forest or the plants in the forest, they increase the moisture and nutrients in the soil, decrease the wind velocity, decrease the wind velocity and furnish or provide the shelter and provides a shelter and food for the animals. And that's why in the forest, trees or the plant community, trees or the plant community or plants serves as a dominant species or a community dominant in the forest community. So this is the example, that is the plants. Plants or the trees in the forest community represents the community dominant because they shows or they are the major source of food in the forest for other animals, and it is also having large quantity of its biomass, and it also shows the highest number of activities in the forest community, and thus the plants or the trees in the forest shows the community dominance, or they are called as a dominant. They are called as dominant or community dominant in the forest community. So the plants or trees are dominant in the forest community. Then Simpson in 1949, Simpson 1949, who proposed a formula to calculate the index dominance, that is capital C is equal to summation of small n I by capital N. So here small n I represents the importance value of each species, or number of individuals of each species, or the biomass of each species divided by capital N. That is, capital N represents total importance value of all the species, or total number of individuals of all the species, or total amount of the biomass of all the species, and capital C represents the index dominance. So this is about the dominance. So today, with this, we'll stop here. Today we have explained two characteristics of the community, that is species richness and a dominance. Species richness and the dominance. So, uh, uh, observe the video, complete video, so that you can get its complete idea. So, for better understanding, listen and observe the complete videos of the lecture so as to clear the idea or the topics, that is species richness and dominance. In a species richness, what is species richness? It is just a total number of different species, present in a ecological community or a landscape or a region. Species richness means total number of species in the community, called as species richness. And what is dominance? Out of total number of species of the community, few species are found to be dominant or serves as a controlling force or controlling influence in the community, either due to their higher number or larger size or more number of activities or the interactions in the community, called as community dominance. So there are few species in the community which are acting as a dominant community, acting as a dominant species or a dominant, because they may provide or they may serve as a major source of food, or they may show their higher number or higher biomass or highest number of activities or the interactions in the community, and thus dominating the particular species or only one or few species. The dominants are all other remaining species in the community, and this is called as a community dominant or a dominance. So today we'll stop here. Next time we'll continue with the third characteristic of the community, that is species diversity. So today we'll stop here. Thank you.